You're tuned in to the Restaurant RockStars Podcast. Powerful ideas to rock your restaurant. Here's your host, Roger Bodwin.
Welcome back to the podcast, guys. You know, one of the things I love most about this podcast is I get to talk to real, true industry professionals. And we talk shop, and I learn from them, and we share ideas and anything that'll help you run a stronger, more profitable business enterprise. So I'm really excited today to talk to Mr. Greg Plester, and he's from a company called Core Hospitality. So as you can imagine, this episode is all about just that, hospitality and service. We're going to be talking about what makes a truly memorable dining experience. You know, the characteristics of a really great general manager, what customers are looking for in restaurants, the importance of training, that all-important staying out of the weeds, and how you build teamwork in a hospitality enterprise. So stay tuned. We're going to cover all these things and lots more, as well as how to deal with unhappy guests, which happens from time to time in any restaurant. So stay tuned to the episode. You know, scheduling staff is like being an air traffic controller. Sticky notes, emails, texts. There's so many requests. Your employees say, I didn't see the schedule. I can't work Friday. I need to switch with Sally. I asked for time off. Well, it's time to land those planes. With hot schedules, all requests go into one system to build the perfect schedule. Staff can get their schedules 7 ways, including a powerful app. They can easily communicate with managers, pick up or change a shift in just a few clicks. There's even a template for recurring schedules based on sales, traffic, budgets, you name it. See why Hot Schedules is the #1 staff scheduling app on iTunes and why over 170,000 restaurants in over 60 countries are using Hot Schedules to save time, manage costs, and grow their business. Go to hotschedules.com/free-trial for a free demo. I'll repeat that. hotschedules.com/free-trial for the free demo. Check it out. Welcome back, everyone. This is the Restaurant RockStars Podcast. Engaging topics that help restaurants build their brands, rock their profits, and deliver amazing guest service experiences. Today, my guest is Mr. Greg Plester. He is a team lead for Core Hospitality. Welcome to the show, Greg. How are you tonight?
Good, Roger. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you here. We share a lot of the same philosophies about service and about training and about running restaurants and about, best practices. We're going to get into all that. But before we do, my guests know that I usually start out with the backstory of who I'm interviewing. And your resume in the hospitality space is quite impressive. You've done lots of different things. Why don't you take us through all of that and how you got to Core Hospitality?
Okay. Just, like most of us, started out young and then just stuck to it. So it's all I know. It's started out in the back as a line cook and then went to school for it, become a chef. And then, a lot of my first half of my career was in the back as a chef and a kitchen manager. And I started to get flown to and driven to and bused to different restaurants that had opportunities, I guess we could say, and to assess and to implement systems and training and to try and help the leadership team that was there. And it just continued. Then the next store and the next store and then and then the next brand, the next company, the next store, the next store. So it was maybe about 15 years ago, 18 years ago, I started working out front as well, more full time, and then going into the GM position, and then the next store and the next store, and flown to the east, to the west, and same thing, only full business unit now. So front and back assessment, full leadership team assessments, And over the years, and I have kind of lost track of how many restaurants I've, how many restaurants I've worked with. But there's always a lot of people that kind of stand out. A lot of great leaders, a lot of great line cooks, a lot of great servers, a lot of great dishwashers, a lot of great team members. And I think over the years, we all kind of grow a little bit, and you see it for more than what it is, for more than just running a restaurant, and for, understanding that the people really run the restaurant, right? And we're just there to kind of guide them. And I think that's what brought me to Core Hospitality is, seeing all these opportunities in these restaurants over the years, and, and still going out for dinner and so on. And, we're the worst critics. All of us are the worst critics when we
That's
go
so
to
funny
dinner,
to
right?
say
Like,
that.
oh yeah, right. And
yes,
and some of them you're like, oh, I'm just nitpicking. And then some of them you're like, what's going on? Like, what's happening? And so it's not, it's the restaurant industry is in a funny place right now. It really is. The hospitality gig is a funny place right now. Everybody owns one, and everyone wants to be busy, and no staff are staying. So it's now more than ever, I think the essence of, believe in your people speaks more now than ever. And I think that's what really drove the Core Hospitality, was to try to help operators. And I mean, we're not consultants. We don't come on site. We don't do any, very rare anyway. But, we're there as a support platform. I mean, we're talking to people every day, via Messenger, just them asking questions. Hey, I'm dealing with this. What do you think of that? Or this person. I posted a video about how to deal with a tough employee, because everybody doesn't. A lot of people don't, and they end up running the roost, and it's toxic. And they're pretty smart, and that came from somebody asking a question. And I thought I'd throw up the answer on a blog. So yeah, so essentially I've kind of kicked around everywhere throughout North America, and all sorts of the major brands and all sorts of facilities, and area management and area chefs as well, multi-unit. And I think it's time we get back to the people. I want to help them.
That word people really resonates with me, because it really is the foundation of any great successful restaurant. And there's so many different personalities that you deal with as a manager, and the customers, get to know people for their personalities. And we always encourage the staff to be who they are, and to stand out, and to make friends with the customers, and to educate and entertain and inform each customer. And that was the key to success a lot. But the passion really runs deep, and it's really clear that you have that passion. You know what I'm talking about. It could be a really crazy upside down business most of the time, controlled chaos, a lot of us refer to it at many times. But just the friendships and the relationships that you make with the team, with the customers and all that, really is what drives the business forward, I think. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even outside of hospitality, everybody talks about culture. And that's what it is. I mean, that's essentially what you're describing is, creating that culture. And, and there's lots of tricks and strategies to do that. And you can see when you go out and about in different, in different restaurants, that it's not always happening. Right. And I mean, we are tied a little bit up with the labor pool right now everywhere.
Oh yeah, that's a big challenge. Everyone's complaining about it.
Yeah, it's everywhere, and retention and keeping people engaged, and like we've all seen, of course, on millennials, and it's a different environment, it's a different landscape right now, and so we need to approach that a little differently, and go a little bit back to basics. And I mean, even dealing with the guests, you have to deal with them differently now. Like, everything's a little bit changed. I mean, and I think the great leaders are changing with that, but I think there's some who they're just struggling. Like, they're just stuck, right? They're just a little overwhelmed. And that's, like what Restaurant RockStars does. And there's a bunch of us who, try to help and support, these owners and operators.
For sure. Greg, would you define hospitality for me in your own words? What does that word mean to you, really?
Creating an experience. I think, being hospitable is you're making a memory, you're making an experience, right? And, so many places get caught up in, the steps, the procedure and the policy and the policing of the controlling of the this and the that and the what's the bottom line, and stuck in an office. And we figure we don't forget. I'll take that back. We get caught up and sometimes can lose sight or lose grip on creating that experience. I mean, that experience for the guests is what drives our business. And everybody knows this. It's just, how do you get back to that, right?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it is common sense and everybody knows it, but it's not, I shouldn't say it's surprising, because you and I eat out quite often, I'm sure, because it's part of being in the business. And you just mentioned a little while ago that we can definitely have a critical eye. And I think every restaurant owner or GM on their night off, or when they have time and they do dine out, you are critiquing what's happening behind the scenes and what's happening right in front of you all the time. I mean, it's just human nature to do that. But somehow the whole service is kind of a lost art, and the experience is lost because the service isn't what it used to be. And what I'm talking about is, if you went back to the 1940s or 50s or even the 60s, when there was a maitre d', that greeted you at the door and sat you at your favorite table and pushed the chair in for the lady and took your coat and just entertained you and made you feel like you were a very important person. Those days are so gone. It's like same era when you'd pull up to a gas station and they'd put air in your tires and wash your windows while they pumped your gas.
Yeah.
It's like,
I was talking about that. Yeah.
Used to happen, but it doesn't anymore. And now you go into a restaurant and there's so many moving pieces and there's so many different people that you interact with, starting with a host who hopefully greets you at the front door and seats you at the table. And then you've got servers and busters and bartenders and all these different people. But sometimes the experience is just lost because the training is missing. There's no choreography. The servers are order takers. I mean, I can go on and on and on again.
Mm-hmm.
And that is lost on so many operators with otherwise good restaurants that have good food and interesting ambiance, but the service piece is missing. Mm-hmm. Or maybe the service is there, but the ambiance is missing, or all three aren't present. That's just a challenge for me. And maybe I'm more critical than most because, this is what I've focused on for 25 years, and you as well. But it's like, what's the key advice to an owner, operator, restaurateur, a general manager? It's like, how do you deliver the experience consistently day after day when you're serving hundreds of people a day so that everyone is touched by that experience? I mean, it's hard to achieve. We're all just human. Mistakes happen, the unexpected happens, and the show must go on. But there got to be a way to deliver that consistent experience. It's so important.
Yeah, I think. Two pieces of that is, we're so tied with costs versus 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. The ever rising costs, and
yes.
We're check driven. That's it. QSR, fine dining, we're check driven. Mm-hmm. The ones that are making a few more bucks than the others, is these high checks, these $35, $40 checks are making a couple bucks in these nice places.
Yeah.
The QSR that's focused on volume rather than margins, they're making a couple bucks too. There's a lot of in between in that aren't making money, they're just struggling. Right. And it's really tough to get out on the floor. And, when you're everything's reactive, you're in a completely reactive state. So it's a funny,
you're right.
Not funny. It's a tough time right now for a restaurant, for a restaurateur. But going back to the other piece you're talking about is presence. That's what I found has lacked. I remember my first shift. I remember my first shift on the floor. My first floor shift, I think it was 18 or 19, a manager of a busy roadhouse at the time. All your standard flair. This is back in 91 or 2. And so it was right when roadhouses were they were, Apple, TG, like all the, they were happy, right?
Right. Oh yeah, totally.
And
they were fun places. Yeah.
And you were on the floor, that's where you were. You were on the floor, you're working with people in the open, you're working with people over lunch, you're building guest experience, you're doing Manager 500, you're you lived on the floor. You're doing your board change, you're making sure the out times are being met, the side duties being done. You are on the floor. And now I find over the years that we have so many different things thrown at us that never used to be. And not to say they shouldn't exist. But they're taking a lot more time away from the floor. And we say the floor, we mean people, we mean the guest experience, we mean staffing and development, right? So it's a really funny time right now. And I think there's a number of us out there, and there's good operators out there, and there's people who want to do it that have some tricks and some tips and strategies to make that happen, to bring that manager presence back, that leadership presence.
Yeah, I used to have a mantra. I had many managers over the years, both floor managers, dining room managers, GMs, all that sort of thing. And the main advice or the main mantra was the floor is your office.
Yeah.
And you're on, the whole time during that shift, and you are kissing babies and shaking hands and solving problems and putting out fires and anticipating needs and doing all those things. And that is part of the guest experience for sure. And making every customer feel like they're the only customer in the place, even if you got 300 seats filled,
Yeah. And building something in the community beyond your four walls. I mean, being a part, being a stakeholder in the community, and not because head office told you to, but because you believe in it. Because you believe you're employing the kids of, your friends and family, and, those places are still here. They've been here for 20, 30 years because of that loyalty, that community loyalty, and not because somebody told them to.
No, that's just good business.
Right? That's just good business.
Absolutely right.
You believe in it. So, it's...
Well, you use the word presence, and presence also applies out in the community, not just on the floor. It's also the presence that you have in being, a leader, a thought leader in the community, and contributing and volunteering, being part of the Chamber of Commerce, getting involved, serving on committees, going out into the community and spreading the word, not just about what the restaurant is all about, but, supporting sports teams and just giving back in so many ways. And that was important when we ran restaurants. It's still important today. And again, that's a real challenge when you've got so many details in running the operation. But I guess that's when it comes down to having systems in place. And there are so many restaurants, if they're lacking those vital systems, they're running the place by the seat of their pants. The restaurant's running them. They're not running the restaurant, and without the systems, you just don't have that extra time to go the extra mile and give back, I think.
Absolutely. And it's sometimes, there's a lot of restaurants out there that are beyond system based, where their policies and policing, and it's more of a control than a belief. And then that's the vicious cycle right there. Is that, you get stuck in the reactive of like checklist, and everyone's just being controlled rather than believing in it. I mean, there's systems that need to be there. Yeah, you need to have a closing checklist, right? For the kitchen. But is it 5 things or 3 pages? Like, if it's 3 pages, then they don't care, like, at all. But if you can do a closing checklist with 5 to 10 items and it's clean, it's because they have pride in it. Because you're there, you're with them, right? You're closing with them, you're and I think, creating that belief, in what we're doing is the manager presence, being out there. But how do you get out there when you're, driven by paperwork, that may not be required? And there's lots that are.
There is.
Right. So it's a bit of a funny cycle to be in. Right. And, like one strategy or tip that, some do is, the paperwork aspect, all the data entry, because now everything's data entry. Get a key holder to do it. Get a good server to do it. Like, you don't need to do it. If it's something confidential, you do that. On an admin day. But like, if it's just putting numbers into a computer, invoicing or something like that, just get somebody else to do it. You don't need to do it. If you've already done it, received it, and you got, like, pay someone else to do it. Hold them accountable for it. It's not rocket science,
No.
You want to do the statement, different story, right?
Well, there's always someone in every restaurant that really has a passion for the business, and they come into it and they want to grow and they want to learn and they want to take it all the way. And, I've got an example. I started my first restaurant 25 years ago, and my very first employee was a 15-year-old dishwasher. And he just had something special. And within 3 weeks, he was closing the place 3 nights a week, sending the credit card batch. He was just so eager to learn. And I took this person under my wing over the next 15 years, and I taught him everything I knew about running a business. And he wanted to learn, and ultimately his goal was to open his own restaurant. And, 15 years later, he opened his own restaurant.
That's amazing.
No formal education, no college, no culinary training of any kind, just 15-year-old dishwasher, just worked for me for 15 years and worked his way up, became the kitchen manager, managed the place, did an amazing job, was really good with costing, with ordering, with inventory, all that stuff. And then he went on to open his own place. And that is just inspiring, because this is definitely the industry where you can start at the very bottom and go to the very top without necessarily having that formal education, having any advantages, all just having a burning passion and a true desire to succeed, and then the rest will follow. So, that's just more of what makes this restaurant industry so special, I think. Just the potential and the camaraderie and all that. I'm a big believer in empowerment. I love that word empowerment,
Yeah, it's so important. It's engagement got a little overplayed over the last 12 years, where everything was with staff engagement and reward programs and this and that, and it became fake. It came a little unauthentic, right? But your example of that, that guy you brought in, that's you being present. I mean, that's you being present in his development, in his growth, and showing that care and compassion. And I mean, along the way, he was also good at invoicing and cleaning and working and cooking.
Right.
Not just because of who he is, but because he believed in what you were doing.
Well, what the key was, I think, if I go way back in my memory bank, I remember when I first started, everyone thought they're doing all the hard work, and Roger's the guy getting rich, because every time he sells a $20 steak, $20 goes in his pocket. And they had absolutely no concept of, okay, we got a rent to pay or a mortgage, and we got to make payroll, and we got cost of goods. And every time a plate breaks, maybe it costs, $7 just came off the profit of the next steak we sold because we just broke. They had no concept. Yeah. So back in the day, I made it very simple, but I think I decided that I was going to train people in, think and act like an owner, treat everything as if you had to pay for it, because this is really what the bottom line profit is. And no, Roger's not getting rich. And unless I have about 20 of these places, I'm not getting rich. And that was very empowering for me. And that was very inspiring for the staff. And it's amazing how that changed the whole culture of the place, just by teaching and educating them on what it's really like to run the place and to work as a team, and to get the most, the best results out of everybody, so that the customer has the best experience, and that the restaurant grows its volume and grows its sales, and we get repeat business, and we get buzz and word of mouth and all those things. And it all stemmed from the team working together once they truly understood the fine line between success, failure, and the in-between. And you mentioned it yourself. I mean, the profit margins really are so slim, and it's unfortunate that so much of the industry is somewhere in that 6 to 8% net profit range. And they say you're doing really well if you're somewhere in the 10 to 15% profit range. And wow, it's so true. And I know that, from a personal experience standpoint. But a lot of the restaurant employees out there aren't going to take a vested interest unless you engage them. But I think the recognition and rewards part is still very, very important. And we had a lot of success with that too,
Yeah, absolutely. And what you did by educating them and so on, regardless of the agenda, is, you created a synergy, right? You created a synergy with the team to point everybody in the right direction, and, not to, keep kicking the basket, but presence again. I mean, you're out there doing it, right? And I think I just think if we see more of that, we will engage far more. And I don't think like no, that's what we do, right? And you get more passion and belief in what we're doing, like what you just said with understanding the cost of goods and so on, and how the financial scope works. You get people who really believe in it. Right. And if you can get people to believe in it and start rowing the same way, I mean, there it is. Your number one marketing tool, the guest feedback. Like, that's it. Like, you have made it, right?
Well, you've heard, I mean, it's such a cliche now in this business, but the customer that doesn't complain, but just doesn't come back, but how many people they tell. And now, especially in the age of social media, where online reviews are so important for restaurants, I mean, that's the kiss of death right there if you're not delivering amazing experiences and dealing with unhappy guests in the right manner before it spreads beyond, wildfire. And you've got an interesting philosophy about that too. And I think you call it the L.A.S.T model. And that's an analogy. You care to explain that a little further?
Yeah. So the L.A.S.T model, I've heard that from different brands as I've been floating around. It just kind of simplifies it, and it's listen, apologize, solve, and thank. And I mean that's that's a simplistic way to put it. So when you're training servers, we use the L.A.S.T model. When you're training junior managers, use the L.A.S.T model, and a lot of the great managers and leaders are already doing it like that. But to be honest, I just did some coaching on that today. I saw somebody kind of skip a few steps, right? And and especially now, like you just mentioned with the social media and the if they tell one, they tell 100 and all that sort of theory. I mean, it's a fact. Like that's not a theory anymore. Like it's we talk about guest engagement and comment cards or Yelp or TripAdvisor, whatever platforms you're using, those, and there's a lot that don't use it, is measuring top box scores and high scores in their guest feedback platforms to create those guest ambassadors. I did a few videos on this too, and it's just my philosophy on marketing is if you're doing an unbelievable job, keep marketing. But if you're pissing off half the people coming in, don't piss off another half. You know what I mean? And when you have guests, when you're dropping in sales, and when guest feedback on Yelp or all these platforms are, faltering, or you're dealing with them all the time, and you're wondering where sales are going, and I'll start a marketing campaign locally or this or online or Instagram or whatever. You might need to take a look at the ops first before you start getting more people in the seat. And I mean, the measurement of the guest feedback, that's number one with me. I mean, that's how all the restaurants used to grow not very long ago, right? And they were busy. So, it's my theory.
Well, there's so much technology now available to restaurants with guest feedback and data mining and frequent visitors and spending patterns and loyalty and rewards and all that kind of stuff. But then there's still the old school way that has the personal touch. Are you in favor of either way? Is there some place in the middle that still works for most people?
You need to be online. Absolutely. Like you need to be present, and you need to be engaging, and you need to be talking to people. And if somebody does make a comment, you need to be listening and L.A.S.T model online. Like you still need to be active, very active. But it can't take a priority over what's going on in the store. And you need to have something on a larger data pool, showing how your true operations are. I mean, they're future sales forecasters. So if you have comment cards, or if you have some sort of online Empathica, some sort of metric that they go online and do a survey on, or whatever, they get a free appetizer. Something that measures the amount of fives, top box, meaning they're guest ambassadors. That means when they go out, they're not just saying, oh yeah, I went to Bob's place. Yeah, no, it was all right. No, it was good. No, they're going out and specifically bringing it up first in a conversation. Holy cow, I went to Bob's place. Unbelievable. That's a 5. That's true marketing, right? So I'm both. So, and those indicate future sales when you have those huge top box scores. But yes, you still need to be online because everybody's online, right? So.
Describe the magic for me. When you go out and you know that a place is just really just dialed on all cylinders, what makes a truly great dining experience in your mind? And then once you've recognized that and you've experienced it, how do you translate that experience to the clients you work with to deliver those experiences? What first is the experience, and then how do we replicate that, capture lightning in a bottle, and then share it with others to elevate the industry?
Well, I mean, as for all the old schoolers and hardcores, as I usually say on my blog, great food, great service, great atmosphere. That was it. That was the 3 prongs, and it's been like that forever.
Right.
Now, over the last 10 years, great value has added its head to that. It's now a 4-piece pie, and
value.
And when we say value, it doesn't necessarily mean cost point. It means full package value. Did you get value in your experience? Not was it cheap, but was it worth it? Was it worth getting ready? Was it worth getting the kids out? Was it worth going there? Was it worth like the wait? Was it worth it? Was the value there, right? And so that's what I look for when I go out. So there's one restaurant, I did another video on that, and there's one restaurant we go to quite a bit, and the values. I don't want to say what it is, but it's actually going to change the market. It's kind of scary. The price points are so aggressively low, and it's a steakhouse. It's unbelievable. But we go there, and the value is exceptional. The service is pretty decent. The food's pretty decent. The atmosphere is great. And it's good. Like they hit it all. Like it's very rare they ever kind of mess it up to a point of, mistakes happen, but it's good. They've hit all pieces of the pie. There's a nice restaurant that my wife and I go to. We don't bring the kids to this one. They excel on all 4 pieces of the pie. Like you go in and it is proper service. It is, the food is spectacular. The fusion and the recipes are amazing. The atmosphere is gorgeous, and the value, obviously you pay a bit, but the value is still there because you know it, right? You've got a nice collar on and you're looking good, and you're going to this place on a little date night, and you've got an experience and you rave about it, right? And so how do we translate that to the next owner and operator? That's the funny part. That's where it gets a little tricky.
I know, that's the magic dust. How do you replicate it?
We get the 4 pieces. Oh, this is it. This is what you do. That's all you do. Too bad there's 3,000 spinning plates underneath that, right? But it generally always falls under 3 pillars of people, profits, and processes. And that's kind of, you got to be financially responsible. You got to be people, staff and guests driven. And you have to have, some key processes in place. And if you can just kind of compartmentalize your mind with that and be strategic, because we're all strategists in this game, right? You can put the proper plan in place to get to great food, great service, great value, and great atmosphere. But it's a strategy, and you make your plan, 30 days, start another one. Make your plan, just keep going, just keep moving the needle, just keep going, one step at a time, right? And unfortunately, sometimes we're just running, like we're just running, right? So you got to stop running.
I get the sense that when you go to either of those places, you're getting a consistent experience every time, and that is another piece of that magic dust. It's like, how do you maintain consistency when, again, the element of error will always be there because we're human, we make mistakes. And obviously, even if something bad goes wrong, you can still spin it around and give the guest a great experience just by admitting that we made a mistake and making it right for the customer, however your philosophy is in dealing with that. But consistency is so, so important, especially if you've got, you're building a brand of multiple locations. You want to make sure that if you go to the first location one week and then the next week you're 20 miles away in another location, you're getting a consistent experience. And that, again, is another plate that's spinning in the air. Multiple locations at that. So many challenges in this business, right?
It is. And I think trying to compartmentalize as best you can. Yeah. And I mean, putting them in, different silos and, the 4 steps of this and the 2 steps of that. I mean, it helps. It really helps, right? And
definitely,
when you go into a place, a busy restaurant on Friday night, and you see the manager at the front door with the host team, giving direction and not necessarily seating, but up there and greeting and giving direction when need be.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be in for a pretty good experience. The fact that they know that.
The air traffic controller.
The lineup's insane. And the poor 16-year-old girl or boy doesn't have a clue what's going on. They're completely in the weeds. And, where's the manager? Like, what's going on, right? Something could have happened. Maybe somebody's sick, whatever. But that happens again and again. Well, you're probably done, right? You're probably done going there, right? So, just, again, presence. It just really comes back to presence, right? That little trick is Manager 500 that I think is something handy for everybody, again, to compartmentalize. And that's just, you're at the front door at dinner, and then you're at the window to check quality of food and bill times. And you're at the bar first, getting quality drinks and bill times at the bar. Then you're at the window, and then you're at the dining room. And at the dining room, what are we looking for? Faces, right? Anybody looking up? and you're making sure that the, clean lines on the tables, clean tables, everybody looks happy generally, right? You can kind of get the vibe of what's going on. And then you do it again, back to the door, next flip, right? So a lot of managers don't know that. Like, they don't know that trick, right? And I think I was taught that when I was a teenager, So
I've been to really expensive restaurants, unfortunately, where the manager is like off in the corner talking to the staff half the shift, as opposed to showing and delivering that presence. And that's unfortunate also.
Yeah.
It should never happen. If you're in charge, you lead by example, you train, you develop your people, you empower them, and then you get out of their way and you let them do what they do. And then you, like you said, you're making friends with the customer and you're engaging them and giving them lots of reasons to come back again and tell their friends and share the stories on social media. That's really what it's about.
And they can fail. It's okay.
Yeah.
Like the servers, they can fail. They can't continually fail if they're not listening, but they can fail. It's, it's okay to coach them after and ask them what happened and how it went, what would they do differently. And, they need to have that safe space. They need to have that environment. You still need to have a definitive line in the sand. That can't be crossed in your signature and so on. There needs to be a bit of an oh no factor that exists in the building where they know not to do certain things.
Yeah.
But you still need to have that safe environment, the safe conversation and dialogue, but not to a point where the inmates run the asylum, right? So
let's talk about training. I'm a huge believer in daily training, even if it's just 3 to 5 minutes. I think pre-shifts are incredibly important every single day. Set a theme for the evening, set a service philosophy, have healthy competition. Train your staff to serve and sell, because salesmanship is so important. Is there anything I'm missing? What's training mean to you?
Yeah, training's, I think, number one, right? And
and
we could go, alley rally, shift meetings, all that sort of stuff. And even if you don't have time, to get everybody together because dinner started early, then do the touch points with them as you're going along the shift. And everybody should have some sort of communication board. I would imagine most people do. And in the back, the chef, cam, whoever, alley rally in the back. It's not just a front of house thing. The heart of our restaurant is the back, right? So, get them fired up in the back, talk about quality food, talk about quality ingredients, talk about, guest feedback scores on food tastes great, and get them fired up, right? So no, I agree with that, 100%. And the training, that's the biggest gap in every industry. That kind of exists. It's the return on investment, and that's what scares a lot of people. There's training manuals that are 1 page, and there's some training manuals that are like 20 pages that most staff don't retain or even utilize, and unfortunately even managers bother with because it's too much, right? So it's trying to find that middle ground where you can get a quick return on investment, but it's effective training.
You mentioned something earlier. Now we're talking about service, and you mentioned that classic term, in the weeds, And I've always believed that whether it's a server, a bartender, or anyone really, you can't sell if you're just surviving. You can't serve if you're just surviving. And unfortunately, in too many cases, staff are getting in the weeds. Are there any tips? Call it the steps of service, call it what you want.
Yeah.
How would you keep people, on focus and efficient and attentive and being able to anticipate needs and still serve and sell and take care of every customer in your section without getting caught up in the weeds? Is there
the first step would be for me to go get a charge cord because my computer's going to crash. So give me a second.
Go for it. Yeah, no worries. The show must go on, and it will. I've done that myself.
Why don't you sing a song or something?
Oh, let's see. I wish I could sing.
All right.
And he's back.
All right, back in action.
Saddle. There you go.
So,
we're talking about in the weeds.
Yeah, being in the weeds, just like that. So, to keep everybody kind of out of the weeds is Um, being in the right spot at the right time. I mean, it comes down to scheduling properly. I mean, that's the number one. To make sure that you have the right people on in the right spots, and but again, it comes down to training. Like that's
Yeah.
when we talk about training, then it goes to onboarding, and then talk about onboarding, it goes to screening and hiring, and and that whole process. And not to make it too convoluted, but getting the best teams starts at the very beginning of hiring. And so, we all talk about, all the restaurants talk about, like, root cause actionables, right? So like, this happened, how do we fix it? Well, we do this. Well, is that the root cause? Are we really fixing the problem, like resolving the problem, or fixing it? So when we talk about, staffing, training, and so on, the root cause of that is really the hiring, screening, and getting the right people in there, and interviewing on soft skills now. Like, hard skills are experience. Like, you might as well throw that out the window these days. Like, everybody's worked 13 different jobs for a month each.
Yeah, it's true.
Yep. Or they've only volunteered, and like, so there's no real, like, it's very rare you find somebody who is a professional industry employee, not jaded, right? Saying like, so what would your last boss say about you right now if I called them, right? Like, oh no, like,
exactly. Yes.
Right. So
yeah.
But yeah, I think to keep them out of the weeds, I mean, scheduling, but root cause is just get the right teams in there, get the right people.
I think that's a mistake. Well, especially in this age, and you touched on this earlier about the labor shortage and the problems that everyone's having and finding and keeping a great staff. But it really comes down to, not getting somebody else's bad habits or someone else's problems, or people with too much experience want to do it their way, not necessarily the right way. And I've always believed in recruiting and hiring people that had the right personality and an approach and a true desire to serve the public, and I could train for the rest. Yeah. And I had much better luck in building, longevity with those people than the experienced people that I hired in the beginning, that turned out to, last a couple of months and then they're gone because we just didn't see eye to eye. They wanted to do it their way. I had very specific ways of doing things. So one of the biggest mistakes people are making now, unfortunately, is hiring warm bodies and just throwing them out there because they need them just because the show must go on. And they're putting ads in the paper and putting signs in the window, help wanted. And they're getting the C team that are just showing up for the paycheck, and they last a couple of months and then they're gone. And then you got to start the process all over again. And it costs far too much in lost time and effort and productivity and money to do that. And you just got to build what I call the dream team, one person at a time. And then, like you said, have the presence, be a great leader, and empower them, and just turn them loose and see what they'll do, and recognize and reward them. And they're going to be happier working in an establishment like that than in the common place that, like everyone else is running. I think it's a true competitive advantage to have that approach in developing and hiring and developing a team,
Yeah, and if you have that poor leader on the floor who isn't, living that culture that you believe in, with, staff engagement and giving them acclamations and coaching and, being a positive, creator of teams, fire them. Like, get them out.
Yes.
Like, enough's enough. Like, don't waste your time. Like, these people are running your business, and it sucks. And I get that, but
yeah, me too.
Unfortunately, that's some of the downside of what we have to deal with, right? And
you see that often, Greg? Are you seeing, with clients that you work with, that dictatorial manager style, my way or the highway, and this is the way it's going to be, and blah blah blah, and they lead
usually
by
they're old schoolers.
Some
of them are mostly old schoolers. There's not a lot of new people like that. The only thing you find with the new managers is, look what I can do, right? Like, look what I can do, and I got the job. It's just a little bit more kind of, they're just a little bit more braggadocious, and because they're proud, right? And I mean, that's, not really it's more of a coachable moment for them, and they don't want to let you down, and because they just got it, and like, so, and that's fine, but be honest about that. Like, have that conversation too, like, but just have it honestly, like, you can't let that go, or the staff will be like, oh, I don't listen to Bob. He's he's pompous or whatever. Like, you have to have that dialogue as well. And you can give them that feedback positively.
Definitely.
But yeah, so.
What do you think about teamwork, and how do you get everyone on the same mission? Everyone rallied around that common goal.
Plan. Everybody needs a plan. Yeah. So for, 10, 15 years, I've always had a business plan and a personal development plan. Personal development plan, I just keep to myself. It's my own thing. I don't share with anybody so that I can grow. And, and then the business plan is, it starts with the leadership team and you just, again, people, profits, processes. Pick one of each, whatever the opportunity is, put some actionals behind it, SMART action plan, right? Everybody knows that, right? Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. And even if you have the answers, especially if you already have the answers to those opportunities, like, oh, I'm going to create this, or I'm going to do training seminars or whatever, ask your key employees and ask your managers what they think before the plan's even made. Regardless of what they think, you can filter the conversation to what you want them to say. And, and they may come up with some things you didn't even think of, especially the people on the floor, on the ground floor and, working in it. And then when you make this plan, you rally them behind this plan. And then you create the plan and you roll out with the managers and you put contents behind it. You put it up on the communication board. You put up the metrics. You shift meeting it. You email it. Like, you need a plan. How do you create that? You need a plan. Can't wing it. There's too many of us. Like,
this is true. Yeah, you cannot wing it. So, that's absolutely true.
Big short answer.
All right. So tell us a little bit about what Core Hospitality is all about.
So Core Hospitality, Coho for the clients. I like that anyway.
Coho.
Anyway, Core so lame. Core Hospitality is we're an operations support platform. So we have tools to help make your life easier for owners, operators, and GMs. That's primarily what we do. We get questions throughout the day, daily, and we just answer them. Like, we shoot the breeze, talk shop for free. We do have some products. We do have some things, like we create custom training manuals, like things like we have a POS partner. We have, like everybody does, but this is what I actually believe in. And we have a scheduling software, which is fantastic. I used this software like years ago, and there's a bunch of them out there, and it's a pain to set up, but everybody should be using some sort of software. Mm-hmm. And, and like we've got a communications logbook. We got tools that are there to help bring the operations together about like everything we just talked about, right? And they're all, and then you get all support from that. Like, we have a leadership logbook.
Let's talk about that. The daily logbook. It's sort of a management organization tool. Really great features there.
It's amazing. So for years, a lot of the restaurants I worked in, like a while ago, when I was growing up, they all had some sort of logbook to keep communications. It's a little bit pre-email to age myself, right? So we had a logbook. And then, logbooks started to kind of diminish a little bit. They were pretty simple stuff, like, how's the weather and, the staffing levels and how was your shift? And that was about it. Right. And I always thought they could be better. But then we got into email, and some people, send an email template of this, that, and they type it in and, make sure everybody's on the thread. And, but this logbook is, again, going back to a little bit old school of like the core operations. It brings everyone together. So the logbook has notes, not just on the shift, the weather. It has like the manager daily task, what they did. They write down kind of like, oh, I did this and this. I want to accomplish this and this. Did they do it? Whatever, just so they can keep their notes. They can keep themselves organized. The staff, right? Staff engagement. Did they do a one-on-one or any coaching and counseling? Guest feedback. It basically compiles everything every day of, the essence of what we've been talking about tonight, the actual operations and how that went. And then at the end of the week, there's a weekly people profits and processes weekly meeting template, so you can have your weekly meeting with your leadership team, and if you don't have managers, get some key staff to pretend to be managers or something, get some support, right? And, sit down, talk to them, get them engaged, review the plan, review the people, profits, procedures, and, start working through that same template so everybody kind of knows what the expectation is. It holds everybody accountable to the vision, right? To the dream of what your goal is. And the best part about it is it gives you historical data. So if you're off for a couple of days and you come in, or especially if you're a multi-unit, you come in and you don't have to ask 30 people what happened. You just grab a logbook. Just grab a coffee, grab the logbook, look through a couple of days, and you're like, oh, wow, did this, talk to this. Oh, Tina had a one-on-one with this. Oh, okay, I'll make sure I'll follow up with Bob on that. And, whatever, it's all right in front of you. Or like St. Patty's, what happened last year? Oh, yeah, oh, wait a minute, grab the logbook, boom.
It's there.
Gong show, okay, let's do this year. And so it's a great tool that it's just not a lot of people are doing anymore. And the benefits that we had, back in the day when we used it, were fantastic. So we created it, and it's beautiful. It's gorgeous design and tight binding and all that quality stuff. I had somebody else do it. I made all the sheets, but somebody else built it, designed it. I don't have that kind of talent. So.
Yeah, I had a chance to check it out. I really like what I see. I'm actually going to put the link in the show notes so that our listeners can go check out the logbook. I think it's cool. Anything else you want to share? We've covered a lot of ground tonight, Greg.
Yeah, we kind of. It was good because we just kind of talked shop, which was
love
nice,
talking
right?
shop. Yeah, it's like it just brings me back.
Yeah, it's nice, and a lot of people and can relate to it and be like, oh yeah, or whatever, right? So, no, not too much to just keep swinging at the fences, everybody. Like just keep going, keep running, keep going, and believe in your people because like they believe in you or they wouldn't be there. So. Believe in your people and just try to get out on the floor and try to be present for them and get somebody putting in the paperwork and just start creating that family, as Roger had said, right? Create that culture, man. It starts with you, right? So
it does.
Just keep running. You'll get there. You'll get there. And if you need help, let us know. Either of us, somebody let us put your hand up. We can help. There's lots of people who can help. So, but yeah, that's about it. Keep going. You'll make it.
I really appreciate the time you spent with me tonight, Greg. It's been great. Talking shop is a ton of fun. It just keeps the passion alive in the business. And I hope we inspired some people and gave them some nuggets of wisdom and operational, ideas and best practices. And that's really what this is all about. So Thanks everyone for listening. And thanks, Greg, for appearing.
Well, thank you very much, Roger. We'll talk soon, I'm sure.
That was the Restaurant RockStars podcast, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Thanks, guys, for listening with us. I really like Greg's Leadership Daily Log. It's a really powerful management organization tool for your restaurant. It'll help streamline communications, keep you all organized, and it'll help you look at past historical data and present data at your fingertips. Check it out. I've put the link in my show notes to today's episode. I also want you to know all about our Restaurant RockStars Academy at restaurantrockstars.com. We have 3 levels of membership that'll help you with any of the pain points or challenges you're having with your restaurant. The first level is all about cost controls and profit maximization. We help you dial in your finances, whether they be inventory, food, beverage, and labor costs, daily break-even, costing out a menu for maximum profitability. It's all in there. The second level of membership is about staff training for service and sales. It'll help you build what I call your dream team staff. And finally, the platinum level of membership is the whole enchilada. It's everything you need to know to start and profitably operate a successful, profitable restaurant. Whether you're just starting out with your first place or you're a veteran and you've been in the business a while, it contains the financial piece, the staff training piece, marketing and efficiencies, as well as all the logistics you need to open your doors to your very first place. It is all encompassing. If you like what you're hearing, please leave us a review on iTunes. It'll help other owners and managers and hospitality professionals find us. And I'm also available one-on-one. If you need a challenging problem solved, or if you just want to talk shop with me, I offer a free 30-minute consultation. You can reach out to me, Roger, R-O-G-E-R, at restaurantrockstars.com, and we'll set up a time to chat. I'd love to talk to you. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Restaurant RockStars Podcast. For lots of great resources, head over to restaurantrockstars.com. See you next time.